Fix the hair. All right, now how am I going to see that and my talk at the same time? We'll figure it out. So, for those who don't know me, my name is Amber Guzman, and I'm a licensed practitioner here at the Center for Spiritual Living in Monterey, California. I've got lots of titles. You know, I'm a mom. I serve on the board of directors here. I'm on the board of directors for my homeowners association. I served in the United States Army for 4 years, so I'm a veteran. I sing background for a couple of local bands, and I love that. And I've got a beautiful husband who is here. It's working. Oh, good. Thank you. Go for Facebook. Yay. Today is August 18th, the third week in our monthly series called Unstatus Quo. And so to recap that theme, we've come to expect a status quo in our spiritual community. We tend to know what to wear, who will see, what the topics will be, when the music and treatment will happen, everything. We're prepared. But when we operate in the status quo, we miss so much of the beauty and growth that happens when we move outside of the normal and step into the beyond. Here lives a rich community, a variety of topics, ideas, and things that we often stuff down because it would be deemed inappropriate. We forget that it's when we don't do these things or we don't have these taboo topics in spiritual community that we're actually isolating those for whom those topics are the forefront of their lives. Sex, marginalization, trauma, abuse, disabilities, ableism, addiction, shame, chronic illness, mental health, consent, racism, poverty, food insecurity, politics. We're all impacted by one or more of these human experiences, and we deserve to have the grand rising. And so we must be willing to embrace the wholeness of humanity, including those things we'd rather not be talking about, especially in the spiritual community. Oneness equals wholeness, and therefore no topic is taboo. And we know that today's topic is, let's talk about sex, baby. So I'm gonna need you to help me out. Like, one of the things that my husband and I do at home is we watch Ancient Aliens. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, but every other time they talk about something, they're like, ancient astronaut theories say, or, you know, so we always say, whenever they say that phrase, we say, drink. Now, it's a drinking game. We don't actually drink. We just love to say the word. So that's what we're going to play today. Anytime I say the word sex today, because we need to keep this light and fun because I'm dying up here. A slow, painful death. This is very uncomfortable. So every time you hear the word sex in this talk, I just want you to say, think. Think. We're going to think about how we can incorporate sex into our spirituality and unlearn the ways that we may or may not have been taught about it in the past. It's going to be a very light talk, and it's going to go by fast. So let's test it out. Talk titles, let's talk about sex. That came from a Salt and Pepper. Very good. That came from a Salt and Pepper song from 1995 or 6. And it goes, let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex. All right, good job. Give yourselves a hand. Awesome. Okay, so I also need to read the room. I need to make sure the audience who I'm talking to. So do me a favor and close your eyes for your own privacy and the privacy of those around you. And now I need you to raise your hand if you have ever had sex. No peeking. No peeking. Keep them closed. Okay, you can put your hand down and open your eyes. All right. A couple more questions that you can keep your eyes open for. Raise your hand if you have ever been born. Oh, okay. You've all been born. Okay, good. You can put your hands down. Now, raise your hand if you know how that came about. Yeah? Woo! Sorry, I forgot this is so loud. Oh my gosh, I was worried that I had to start from the beginning, so I can skip all this part, birds and the bees, when two people love each other very much, the stork. Okay, let's do it. We're going to do it in church. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to talk about sex. All right, let's get started. What are some of the things that we have heard that are seemingly bad about sex? Go ahead and shout those out. If you're in the chat, you can type them in. What are some of the things that have been bad that you've heard? Don't do it before you get married. I'm going to say in the mic so those can hear us out. What else? I've heard that it's dirty, nasty, gross.
It's not for spiritual people.
It's not for spiritual people. It can be used as a weapon. It can be immoral. Okay, now what are some of the seemingly good things we've heard about sex?
It feels good.
It brings life. It feels good, right? Yes. It's natural. What else?
Expresses love.
Expresses love. It brings orgasm. It can, if it's done right. So, all those things that we've said that we've been taught about sex all boil down to one thing, right? It's the most scandalous, sinful, shameful thing in the world. So save it for your husband or someone you love. This is what the science of mind teaches. We teach that it is a sacred sexuality. Tantra is a holistic experience and a holistic practice that originated back in the 1500s in the East. It was a rebellion against the orthodox Hinduism of the day. Tantric practitioners are called dakinis or dakas or tantrikas, and they believe that we are put on this planet at this time in these bodies for a reason. The way to enlightenment is not by denying our physical body or pleasure, but rather embracing being human and all that has to offer. Tantra reminds us that our spiritual nature is an unremovable part of being human. And it's truly holistic in that it teaches every aspect of life: mind, body, soul, emotional, physical, spiritual. All of that is part of our growth. And it deserves our time, attention, and our energy. It means that everything we do as humans is inherently spiritual. If we believe that the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all that has been stated by Ernest Holmes in the What We Believe Declaration, then it stands to reason that sex is one of those ways that goodness, loving kindness, and givingness can show up. There's a reason that sex is pleasurable. And by embracing our sexuality and finding healthy and supportive outlets for it, we're taking advantage of the totality of our individual expression. Since there's only one thing going on, God, that one thing must also be showing up as sex, sexuality, pleasure, and intimacy. So let's talk about that. Reverend Robert always gives 3 points, so I'm going to give 3 points too, which will help you know when this is about to wrap up, because I'm ready to run off the stage right now. All right, the first subject that we're going to talk about in relating to sex and spirituality is intimacy. We already talked about it. It feels good. My grandmother used to say, if you put two babies to whatever sex, they don't have to be a different sex, but you put two babies in a playpen, they will find their special parts. It's a natural thing. It can also be a reward. It feels good and it allows us to procreate, so we want to do it more often, which evolves the species. Here's a fun fact. All of life reproduces through some form of sex. And for many species, it is pleasurable. But humans, we are literally, as the kids say, built different, because we are the only mammals that actually have sex face to face. We have the ability to look at each other in our eyes and connect our souls to one another, which can lead to a more spiritual experience. Humans are social creatures, and we are made to be in community together. Intimacy is one of the true delights of human connection. It's defined as close familiarity or friendship, closeness, That's what the Oxford Dictionary says. In Science of Mind and other spiritual circles, we often say that intimacy is into me I see. Literally being vulnerable to another person and allowing them into ourselves. This can be done on a sexual or physical level, on an emotional level, mental, or a combination of some or all of these. Intimacy is one of the deepest pleasures of being human and allows us to be fully seen without masks, restrictions, or qualifications. The more we can be intimate with ourselves, uncovering our own shadows, understanding ourselves, learning what brings us pleasure and joy, and discovering our true physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental selves, the more we can truly be intimate with others. The second point is kind of like a free-for-all: conversation, consent, and communication. Because in the past, sex has been considered something shameful that should be hidden away. We often don't talk about it openly, even with our sexual partners. But viewing sexuality and sex, she's got it. You're still with me? Viewing sex as an inherently spiritual ways of communication invites conversation, consent, and more communication that are the essentials for building healthy relationships. Ernest Holmes reminds us that the ultimate goal of life is to be in complete freedom from all discord of every nature, and this includes our sexuality. This means that we have to be willing to explore our own sexuality, learning what we like and what we don't like. It also means that we have to listen more deeply to our partners, or partner. I just have a partner, don't worry. Just one is enough. Whew. It also means that we have to be willing to deeply listen to our partner and hear what they are saying between the lines, inviting them into self-exploration. And in the past, when we hear anything other than an enthusiastic yes. Boundaries are our physical bodies' right. We have a right to have our own boundaries. And just as we expect others to listen, we get to listen to them and thank them and ourselves for the hell yeses and the holy no's. I also want to say that we must protect and guard our children's innocence. We're bombarded with we're bombarded with sexual images and sexual ideas, television, music, video games. They're gonna get the talk all on their own. So I encourage those, when they feel the time is right, to communicate these topics with their own children. Okay, number 3, almost done. Whew, almost did it. Sexuality, shame, and spirituality. And this is a tough one. I almost didn't want to bring it up, but it was something that needed to be said. A lot of people have mixed feelings about their sexuality and sexual history. While we may enjoy and even crave sexual activity, it also comes with an undertone of shame. This can happen for a variety of reasons, including being raised in a purity or repressed culture where sex is something that was viewed as dirty, secret, or only to be done in a certain way with certain people. In addition, people who have been assaulted may have intense feelings of shame, guilt, anxiety, or even physical pain associated with their bodies, their sexuality, or intimacy. Sex and trauma go hand in hand, with 1 in 3 women and 1 in 9 men experiencing sexual harassment or assault in their lifetime. These numbers are higher for transgender and non-binary people, and as a result, we as a society have hidden away our natural inclination to desire pleasure, separating sexuality and spirituality as though they are inherently different. I love this quote. It's by Adrienne Marie Brown in a book called Pleasure Activism: The Politics of Feeling Good. She said, I touch my own skin, and it tells me that before there was any harm, there was a miracle. Our bodies are that miracle. And regardless of our past histories, that still stands. We are a miracle. We are God incarnate. We are special. We are loved. That's all I'm going to say about that. I did ask a couple of my friends, oh my gosh, I've got to talk about sex. I tried to low-key put it on my Facebook, like, sex and spirituality, go. And only a few people were brave enough to bite and actually type on something what they thought about. But one of my practitioner buddies who graduated me from practitioner school, and she's now a minister with the Centers for Spiritual Living in New Jersey, Reverend Donnelly Martin, reminded me that sex is a lot like chocolate in terms of the feeling that you get. So in terms of shame, we always say don't do it before marriage. Someone from over here said that when we were talking about it early. But there's no shame in not doing it either. There's no peer pressure as we get older if we don't want to do it anymore. I can't believe we're doing this in church. But if we don't want to do it anymore, we don't have to, because there's always chocolate. And look at this. She said, chocolate gives off the same oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin as sex. It's all the feel-good stuff that we experience. Both can create addictions, though, so be careful. But you can have chocolate with your boss at the Christmas party, and nobody will say anything. You can have chocolate at your desk. You can have chocolate in church. You can have chocolate with strangers. You can have chocolate with your secretary, and your husband won't even get mad. There are so many ways that we can sense true beauty, intimacy in life, and it doesn't have to be sex. Ernest Holmes said in Lessons in Spiritual Mind Healing on page 46, we are so intimately connected with the universal creative God power that it is impossible to get away from it. Hence, we never have to wonder whether or not we are in touch with it. It is where we are, and we are in it. It is in us, it is around us, it is flowing through us. In order to release shame about the human aspects of ourselves, it's time to reunite sexuality and spirituality, understanding that sex is an intrinsic aspect to spirituality, that it can be embraced as deeply as we embrace wholeness and oneness. Now, there are a lot of topics we could have gone off on. I just touched on 3. And, there's so many other things. Masturbation, beating. I'm just going to say these things because we're in church, and this is the only time somebody might be able to say them. Kink, BDSM, virginity, sex work, prostitution, polygamy, trafficking. There are so many other things that we can talk about when it comes to this topic. But we're not going all the way. It's just the tip of the proverbial iceberg, they say, just the tip. Just the tip. We're not going all the way, just the tip today. And for those who know, that was supposed to be a joke. It bombed here in the center. Nobody wants to talk about sex. Did you know what I was talking about? Anyway, all right. We have broken some barriers today when it comes to speaking about sex and spirituality. We have decided to think about it. This little talk didn't even get into some of those things that we grew up thinking about, but we get to unlearn, and we get to choose for ourselves and continue the conversation after service, with our partners, with our families, with the world, all without fear and condemnation. So, for those who read the newsletter last week, there was a little thing that I said you can do, but one thing that I invite you to do this week before we're going to do an affirmation afterwards, but you can organize a pleasure event with your friends and community. Now, I'm not talking about necessarily a sexual event, but you can do that too if that's what floats your boat. But just an experience to touch touch different textures, listen to different sounds with headphones, smell different foods or flowers or essential oils, look at beautiful pictures. Just experience life, loving, and sensuality and the beauty of this world together. So many ways to experience pleasure through our sensory input. All right, we got past the hard part. I still just need some more audience participation because hopefully you're not asleep. When I say we can, I want you to say we can. We're going to test it out. We can.
We can.
Very good. Let's keep going. We can cultivate intimacy with ourselves and others. We can choose to be open and vulnerable. We can discover what brings us pleasure. We can explore our own boundaries and what we are interested in trying or consenting to. We can explore everyday pleasures, things like delicious food, beautiful scenery, miraculous moments, and chocolate. We can release the shame that we've been taught about our bodies and our sexuality and any area of tension, shame, and discomfort that no longer services us. We can release it. We can embrace our wholeness as it shows up in every form, including sex, pleasure, sexuality, and intimacy. And finally, we can talk about sex, baby, in church. Oh, we did it. Okay, now it's time for our weekly affirmation. If we can go to PowerPoint on the 1, 2, 3, 4, push 2, and let's say our affirmation together. I am a sexy, spiritual being. Now let's do that one more time. This time, say it like you mean it. I am a sexy, spiritual being. I love that. Whew. And now I invite you to close your eyes and let's just take a moment to treat. We're going to treat about releasing this stinking thinking as it applies to sex and the church and sex and sexuality and our spirituality. Because we know that there's only one thing happening here. There's only one thing, and that thing is good. That thing is God. That thing is life, eternal, divine. That energy undulates through every cell, through every being. It connects us all. And because we know there is only one, we know that I am a part of that same God stuff. I am a child of God. I am a physical incarnation of the divine one true spirit. God's life is my life now. God uses me. I am a vessel to release good into this world. I know that God talks through me. God walks through me. God sings as me. God lives me. God experiences this earthly life as me. And it is with this understanding that I affirm that I am sensual. I am beautiful. Because nothing in God's world isn't. I am whole, perfect, complete. Every scar, every mole, every freckle, every patch of eczema and cellulite is infused with love. It was designed for love, and I receive as much pleasure as I can possibly desire. I am divinely connected, including moments of intimacy with other people, with this oneness, with this wholeness. Everything is holy. I visualize God flowing over us, filling our hearts and minds to the brim as we experience passion, joy, intimacy, orgasm and love, to the point where it's overflowing and running over. I know that God's life is my life now, and I am loved, loving, and lovable. It's with gratitude that I give thanks. I give thanks for this teaching. I give thanks for the opportunity to talk about sex in church. I give thanks for being able to release the shame that comes with the things that I have now unlearned. I give thanks for this teaching. Our senior minister, Reverend Robert, in his travels. I give thanks for each and every one of you who are continuing on your spiritual journeys and interacting, interwoven with my own, are working together to make the world a world that works for everyone. Just as we put a seed in the soil, I release my word into the law. I let it be. I release any negativity, any shame, any guilt, and I allow it to go back into the nothingness from whence it came. There is only love. It is God. It is good. And if any of my words resonated with you today, I invite you to say with me now, and so it is. Whew, we did it. Thank you so much.